Dear friends, today we have with us Ruchi Wali, all the way from Canada. She is an Indo-Canadian community leader, and today we are going to talk about the strategic reset in India-Canada ties with Prime Minister Carney's visit to India. Ruchi, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Pallavi. Good
Yeah.
afternoon, and it's almost nighttime here, but it's good to connect with you.
Yeah. So, Ruchi, let's begin with how important is this strategic reshift? Because from the language that is coming out, from the joint statement that has come out, it's very clear that this is a major reset in India-Canada ties. So, but to begin with, how important do you think is this reset, especially for Canada?
See, this reset is very important. I mean, we have a big diaspora here, and India is a big market. It is like 1.4 billion people, and it's growing. So it's a big reset, and also from a historical term, it's very important. Like Mark Carney, I think he understands the issue. I was listening to his speech in Delhi, I believe, that he visited India during G20 as well. So he has that understanding, and I think he leveraged it well. And we have, like in Canada, it's not like the last government or the one before that. The bitterness in the relationship is at least 40 years old since the Air India bombing. Even before that, that we could have totally avoided this catastrophe like the Canadian 9/11 if we would have extradited, for example, Talvinder Singh Parmar. At that time also Mrs. Gandhi said the same thing what the Indian government is saying today, like you are harboring these separatists, these terrorists, and you can raise snakes in your backyard, and don't you should not expect them to always bite your neighbors. They can come and bite you as well, and this is like a big menace. So yes, the reset is great, but let's not forget the history of it. It is at least like the baggage is at least 40 years old. So we have to wait and see how these, I think they have signed probably 5 MOUs, memorandum of understandings, and there is a couple of university ties, also some center of excellence that they are going to open in India. I think Saskatchewan, which is a province in Canada, they have like huge reserves of uranium, and they also produce a lot of lentils. So they got a 10-year contract for uranium ore. So these are all great things, but I will be a little bit skeptical given the history, given the baggage, and being on the ground here, seeing how things work. So I will be a little bit I'm sitting on the edge of my seat to see how these things operationalize, and they don't they we it'll take a lot of energy and lot of calories to deliver what we have promised, not just from Canada's perspective, but also from India's perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that this reset has happened. I'm very happy how our Prime Minister Mark Carney, I was listening to his speech in Mumbai. He used the word, we are not going to weaponize issues. So I think he has a fairly good understanding of, see, there will be issues, and there are some issues, and we are happy to tackle them and deal with them, but diplomacy and law and order, they are two separate things, and it's better to keep them separate so that you do not damage that relationship. It takes a lot of time to build relationships, and we should continue to build those rather than damaging them.
Yeah, and that's what my follow-on question was. That as you mentioned that there's a long baggage, there's a baggage of history when these particular issues are concerned. And we saw that when Stephen Harper was the prime minister, there was major improvement, but then during Trudeau's time, the relationship completely nosedived. Going forward, do you think that irrespective of which government comes to power, the effort will be to stabilize this relationship and take it forward, or do you think that the domestic compulsions are such that we have to keep our fingers crossed?
Yeah, I will keep my fingers crossed because I know, because like I'm a Kashmiri Hindu, and I'm married in a Sikh family, so I understand the Khalistan issue from a very like a detailed perspective. And so I am on the ground. I have my fingers crossed because I know that the Khalistani separatists, they have infiltrated a lot of our system. So, and they are, and you can see, everything that is happening in the mainstream media also. So they, I think, we'll have to keep at it. I don't know if it'll change with the change of government, but I think we still have, time with this current government, and for them to like actually make things work. Like signing is one thing and delivering is another. So I think they have a little bit of runway where they can show that yes, India is a good partner, and it's a, and like Mark Carney also used the word like we'll be reliable partners. So yes, he's saying it, but saying and doing are two different things. So I will be watching it, and I'm hoping, because there's a huge diaspora here. And even if you look at our politics, our politicians, I think they understand that pandering to separatist is not a good electoral strategy as well, and we have seen that in multiple elections, including the last one. So I hope they get this message, like even if I go back in the day, for example, Ujjal Dosanjh is another politician who was like a federal minister also, and he's like the, I think he's the only brown premier of in Canada. So, and he has never sided with these separatists. So there is potential, but so that is important. So yes, fingers crossed. But I'm very hopeful and very positive that this will go through, and we will see a lot of good things happening in Canada as well as in India. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you mentioned Ujjal Dosanjh, who's a Sikh himself, and
yes,
of course, it is one has to emphasize that it's not that all Sikhs in Canada support the Khalistani extremists or the terrorists. It's probably a small minority or a minority.
it's a
And
very cringe, Pallavi. Like even if you were to believe the numbers that they themselves quote, like when they do these referendums. By the way, the referendums that they do, they're not recognized by any sovereign nation.
yeah,
There is no, like, you just don't go and you start having these referendums. There's a certain process around it. It has to be, like, how in elections we have officers who are monitoring. So they don't do any sort of those things, and their referendums are not recognized. And it's like, in a way, they are shooting themselves in the foot, because even if I were to believe the numbers that they quote, they are not even pulling 1% of the Sikh population. And this Khalistan movement has been on for more than 50 years. And what have they achieved other than, Canada has paid the biggest price. They bombed the airplane, or 331 people died. I think in that 331 there were about 30-40 sick people, over 80 kids, like kids younger than 13. They had their whole life ahead of them. So what I think is, the Khalistan issue is not a, it is not about a six state or anything. It's just like a cover that they use by these referendums and talking about all these things. It's a nexus, basically, where they conduct a lot of immigration frauds, they run a lot of drug cartels and all those activities. So it is
yeah.
not about any Sikh representation. They don't have Sikh representation for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, the because this issue is not prevalent in India anymore. I mean, it ended many years, many decades
Yes.
ago in India. And the important point is whether the Canadians themselves. I mean, we know they have their assets embedded in mainstream media, academia, even probably the security apparatus. But
Yeah.
just to end this topic, that do Canadians themselves realize how dangerous this is for them? I mean, this is not going to make any impact in India, but that having these elements trying to derail such an important relationship for Canada, is there any sense or understanding there how dangerous they are for Canada itself?
So they are super dangerous. They are very dangerous. But I feel that the Canadian mainstream media, either they do not have any understanding or they do not want to understand. Either of these two. But if you look at the narrative at a broader scale, you will see, they'll call them Sikh leaders, but they are not. They are they are Khalistani separatists. They are Khalistani terrorists. So I don't, in spite of, and this is like, the Air India bombing happened way before 9/11. But no, I don't think the media has any understanding, and neither they do not want to understand that, because I don't know what's the issue. But they have no understanding, and yes, they are very much. And that's what I was saying, we have to wait and see how this thing rolls, because they are very deep in every system that we have
Yeah.
here.
No, but coming back to Prime Minister Carney's trip, now obviously he's coming to Australia after India, and India, Canada, and Australia have signed a trilateral in the technology sector.
Yes.
My question to you was that do you reckon that this could expand into a strategic alliance? Because India today is probably the only non-hegemonic superpower in the world. I mean, we have two, America obviously the only hyper power, and then we have China. But India, given its civilizational ethos, is not a hegemonic power. Do you reckon that countries like Australia and Canada, and even to a certain extent, European countries could align with India, which is a superpower in a multipolar world? Do you see that happening, or it's too early to say, given everything we spoke about?
Yeah, I think, yes, I think Canada, Australia, and India, we launched this Australia, Canada, India technology innovation partnership in November of last year, and I think they're working on the MOU since then. So how I will position it is basically, India can be like the multi-aligned pole, because like it's a big economy, and the rise is real. And it's a strategic economy, and it can put put itself in the middle and kind of do a multi alignment. And I think that is also the direction that everybody should go, like we have seen in the past, when we align with a certain country and not align ourselves with other countries, be it US, be it China. We've had, look what happened during COVID, and look what what is happening now. So I think that is how Canada should also, and even Australia and India should position themselves into a multipolar, multi-aligned environment, where everybody can have a beneficial relationship, a symbiotic relationship, where they can have multiple coalitions and work together to help each other, like our prime minister also used the word, like we are one family. I think that is what. And then they have, when they align with multiple countries, multiple geographies, then there is more room to maneuver without being pro somebody or anti somebody. So I think every country should put their interests first and try to basically align with as many democracies as they can. That would be my take on it.
Ruchi, thank you so much for taking out your time and speaking with us. And we will come back to you again later. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste.